The February 23rd, 2016 Methacton School District Board of School Directors meeting is now called to order.
All right. Now, you speak into the mic.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, now face that way. Ready? And you start them.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. You guys can go sit down. I appreciate it.
You have something else to say?
Hold on.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Allie Conrad. It is an honor to be here tonight to talk to you about what makes Worcester so special. There are so many reasons. Everyone, the principal, the aides, the teachers, Mrs. Broadhead, and our nurse are all so kind, helpful, and friendly. I love when Mr. Sorgini walks through the halls and pops into classrooms to see how we're doing. It really shows he cares. The teachers always bring out the best in their students by teaching to their individual needs. My teacher, Mrs. Stiles, is always showing us tricks to help us learn and find ways to make what we are learning exciting. I think Worcester is a wonderful learning environment.
Good job. Thank you. It's going to be hard for me to follow that, but I'll try. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Appreciate all the kids coming and their families to the school board meeting. So, Worcester students Allison Conrad, grade 4, and Matthew Decker, grade 3, will be assisting in the opening of the meeting tonight. They have additional information to share with us.
And they shared those comments, and we appreciate it. And essentially, we are going to be, as we will every month, bringing forward elementary students to help us open the meeting and to share with the public some of the great things that are happening in our schools. So if there's no further ado, for Allison and for Matthew, you both are excused if you'd like to go do your homework.
Hold it.
Oh, yeah.
One more thing. Here. We'll do over here. So Allison Conrad, you are now an official, remember, junior school board director. Are you ready for all the responsibility of this? You can handle it? I think you can, Mr. Decker. You are now an official member of the junior school board director. Thank you very much.
Great job, guys.
Okay, so in terms of announcements, the public is hereby advised of the audio and video recording of this meeting for the purpose of rebroadcasting. All board members are in attendance. And now I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Zerbe for some recognitions.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. This evening, it gives me great honor to introduce Mark Constable, President of the Education Foundation for the Methacton community. Mr. Constable, will you please come forward? You have a special announcement. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Zerbe, Mr. Boardman. On behalf of the Education Foundation for the Methacton community, we have a gift that we'd like to present for the Warrior Pride Capital campaign. Now, if you've been on the board or you're new to the board, we're very happy to be able to give, I believe, up to $45,000 in pledges, not pledges, but $45,000 this evening, thanks to a sizable donation made possible by the J.P. Mascaro and Sons Charitable Trust. The foundation is very pleased to present to the Methacton School District $215,000 for the capital campaign. Mr. Boardman, Dr. Zerbe, if you come up. Mary Jane, come on up, please.
I think Jim is here as well.
Is Jim Beam? Jim Beam? Jim, is anyone else back there?
There are lots of people back.
No, any other board members?
Typical Jim Beam.
All right, it's getting crowded up here, so let's go out in the middle.
Hey, Jane, thanks for coming out.
Thank you, Mary Jean.
Thank you, guys. Now, to the board and the audience, those of you who are familiar with the Education Foundation, those who maybe not, we're a board of community members who volunteer their services to help provide support for academics, athletics, and the arts in Methacton. And I guess we kind of paid for this advertisement, but one of our next endeavors is going to be to help support the Methacton High School Marching Band, who are scheduled for a trip in the year 2017 to the Outback Bowl in Florida. And that's a tremendous undertaking, and we would like to try to help them. So one of our biggest annual events is Art Corks and Forks. It's held at Chadwick's in Audubon, and it promotes the artwork of community artists, our high school students, and students in the Methacton School District. And the funds that we raise there, we give back to Methacton. In the past, it has supported the program for the field renovation project, the capital campaign. So what the Art Corks and Forks Committee recommended and what we're going to do is donate the funds that we receive to help support that endeavor by the Methacton High School Marching Band. So if you are a band member or you're a neighbor of a band member and you'd like to be there, please join us. If Cindy Bogley, our chair, would be here this evening, she'd say, make sure you get your tickets. They're $40 a piece. If you come as a couple, they're only $35 a piece. If you come with 6 friends, they're only $30 a piece. But if you wait till the night of the event, there might not be any tickets, and if you do show up, it'll cost you $50. So we'd appreciate your support. Community vendors are there with food and beverages from throughout the Methacton community. It's a wonderful evening, music, art, and a lot of good people. So we hope to see you there. Information's on the website. If you want to go up the administration building, you can buy your tickets there, or you can do them online. So thank you for your support, and we hope we can do some more good things for Methacton School District.
Thank you so much, Mark. Appreciate it. Next on scheduled speakers, this evening we have, as we annually do, recognize the volunteer commitment of the school board directors. The Pennsylvania School Boards Association, on an annual basis, recognizes the work the school board directors does, and we have some folks here this evening that are going to help us with that recognition. This evening I'd like to introduce Jeff McCoach, our high school band director, to say a few words and to start the program off.
So first, Mr. Constable, I'd like to thank you and the Education Foundation for supporting the marching band and our endeavor to get to the Outback Bowl. It's going to be awesome. So thank you so much for that. So as the director of bands here at the high school, one of the members of the a cappella club came to me in the fall. They sing. I'm the band director. And they're like, we just need a sponsor so we can do what we do. And I was like, great, yeah, absolutely. So they are absolutely 100% self-run. I am their sponsor so that they can do what they would like to do, and only very, 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 very rarely do I step in to say, hey, can I help you with that little moment? But they are really, truly, they are self-directed and self-run as the a cappella club, and they are here to sing for you one tune tonight. They're going to sing Rolling in the Deep by Adele.
There's a fire starting in my heart, reaching a fever pitch and it's bringing me out the dark. Finally, I can see you crystal clear. Go ahead and tell me out and I'll lay your ship bare. See how I leave with every hold down there as mine sure won't be shared. The scars of your love remind me of us. They keep me thinking we almost had it all. The stars of your love, they leave me breathless. I can't help feeling we could have had it all. Rolling in the deep, you had my heart inside your hand, and you played it to the beat. Throw your soul through every open door. Count your blessings, you find what you look for. Turn my sorrow into treasure gold. You'll pay me back in kind and reap just what you sow. We could have had it all. We could have had it all. It all, it all, it all. We could have had it all. Rolling in the deep. You had my heart inside your hand, but you played it, you played it, you played it, you played it to the beat.
I got a little video of that, so I'm going to tweet that out just a little bit later when I have time. But what awesome talent we have in the Methacton School District, and again, that is just a sampling of it. And I think Ms. Lynch has some other talent that we have before us today to help us, again, recognize the great work that our volunteer board members have here in the district. So, Ms. Lynch?
Thank you, Dr. Zerbe. So I have with me here today 4 of our esteemed first grade students, representing 4 of our 5 elementary schools. One of the students was invited but was unable to attend, so he begged out, but these guys are here to do the job. They have certificates for each of our board members. As you know, whenever we have M Awards, the board presents certificates to our students. This is our students' chance to sort of turn the tables and give certificates to all of you, honoring School Board Director Recognition Month. So I'm going to introduce each one of them to you, and then I'm going to read your names and just ask that you stand, because I told them that the person who gets a certificate would be standing up. So please do that for me. All right.
If the families want to move anywhere around to
Yes.
get the best pictures, feel free to walk around and get the best pictures
Thank
of your
you.
kids.
Thank you, Mr. Boardman. So I have here Olivia Kozak from Arrowhead Elementary School, Salvatore Lopiccolo from Audubon Elementary School, Nyla Preet from Woodland Elementary School, and Benjamin Borkowski from Worcester. You ready, Olivia? Okay, come here. Chris R. Boardman, President. Thank you. Good job. Good job. Good job. Michael Ryan, Vice President. Here you go, Nana. Kim Aubrey Marcinez. Scott Dorn. Brenda Hackett. Yeah. I know you're ready. Andrea Reese. All right, Salvatore. James Phillips. Herb Roth. One more. Paul Winters. Thank you, school board directors, and thank you, students. A round of applause for them. All done. Thank you. Good job. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you so much, students. Thank you, Ms. Lynch, and thank you, parents, for bringing your children out this evening. The next item on the agenda is presentation, so I will just ask that the board please take their seats in the front row, and we'll get set up for the presentation. There should be handouts for every board member at your table, so you can take those with you to follow along. Thank you. Good evening. This evening I will present a proposed timeline for the board's consideration as we, together, address the matter of effective utilization of our district facilities to meet the educational mission of the Methacton community. This presentation sometime by tomorrow morning will be posted on the district's website and agenda manager. For over a year now, we as a district have had discussions regarding student enrollment and building capacity, and how to best ensure that we, as a district, are making the best decisions in preparing our children today and in the future with a high-quality education. In summary, the Board of School Directors last considered the matter of student enrollment in October of 2015 when presented with options to consider a second enrollment study. At that time, no decision was made, and in subsequent months to follow, it was ultimately decided that the matter be revisited once again by members of a newly elected board and appointed board once they take their seats. As such, that board has been seated and has directed me to prepare and present a timeline for their consideration in addressing the matter of student enrollment, building capacity, and school consolidation. I will present the potential outcomes, items to consider, and the major events on a monthly basis. I have provided the board with a handout and ask that we return to our seats following my presentation for any discussion or questions that you may have. This proposed timeline takes into account the potential impact on our community and considers the fact that if the board chooses to proceed forward once a second enrollment projection is provided, it must proceed and make a decision by mid-January of a given year if there is any potential impact to families in the coming year. This is not a legal requirement, only my recommendation so that it provides proper time to address any potential outcome. There are three potential outcomes the way I see it. which include no change outcome from the current operational status of the district, 8 school buildings and its current operation. A second potential outcome suggests a redrawing of attendance areas with an elementary school building closure. And lastly, a third potential outcome could be that a redrawing of attendance area occurs without a school building closure. These are generally the matters before us. The district needs to establish a level of confidence in the student enrollment projections that will become the basis for all future decisions on the matter going forward. At present time, there exists a need to issue a new RFP that takes into consideration matters not found in the original Pell study, including a look at projections of special education student enrollments among other items that have surfaced from our subcommittee meetings and public meetings on the matter. If the school board approves, I will proceed to produce a revised RFP that addresses those matters and that will allow to move that process forward. Other considerations include a need to assess the educational and financial implications of each potential outcome, consider the results of the facilities assessment study that's underway, and lastly, we need to put together a communications plan that is proactive and has avenues for capturing community input. Now let's take a look at the timeline. Basically, if we look at the February-March timeline, we're going to be looking at presenting the proposed timeline as we are this evening. We're going to ask to issue a new request for proposal, an RFP for an enrollment study, and develop a communications plan. When we look into April and May, the board needs to select a second enrollment projection vendor. Facilities assessment is presented to the board, and we revisit the building capacity information at a public meeting. In June, the board is presented with results from the second enrollment study, at which time they need to consider the next steps. The results may suggest that no further discussion is necessary, and therefore the administration determines a long-term capital and student placement plan considering that decision or that outcome. Or the results could suggest that further discussion or information is needed from a redrawing of attendance areas work. And therefore, the board would need to consider engaging a third-party facilitator for the remainder of the consolidation conversation and process. The next slide, talking about July and August, the vendors present initial attendance area proposals, and consolidation subcommittee works on defining educational and financial implications of the potential outcomes. That process basically begins anew. When we look at September, we're back at the start of a given school year. The attendance area maps and community feedback are provided to the board, and then the board can provide additional direction to the vendor if necessary. Consolidation committee work begins on developing the transition plans that take into account the potential options. And lastly, in September, the board hears a presentation on the educational and financial implications of the potential outcomes. When we look at the next slide, we look at the months of October and November of 2016. We gather final community input for the attendance areas, and a presentation is made to the board on that matter. There's a presentation on the transition plans as well. In the December-January timeframe, in the December-January timeframe, the presentation of potential school consolidation or redrawing of attendance areas. There's a review of the options, community feedback and input is presented, and the motions to be considered will be placed before the board, and will provide public notice of a decision no later than January 15th or the middle of January, if impacting the 2017-18 school year. So essentially, this schedule, in a nutshell, if looking backwards, allows us to allows the district enough time, regardless of a decision being made, but specifically if a decision is to close a building and/or redistrict. It provides both the students, parents, teachers, and families to address either of those two matters in a timely fashion. So that's the most important consideration as we go into this. And then secondly, it also gives us some time to address any of the financial implications and the other educational implications that should occur. But in all fairness, the timeline, while generic, really is going to be predicated upon just a simple second enrollment study. And what that means is the enrollment study that we currently have, as many of you have voiced your opinion, and as well as many of the board members have voiced their opinion, is subject to a level of scrutiny that doesn't allow us to have the confidence necessary to move forward with any such decision. And therefore, it's my recommendation that if nothing else this evening, the board at least provides me direction to start the RFP process. It does not commit you to doing a second study, and it doesn't commit you to a specific vendor, but it does commit me to using my time to put together the RFP, which would then be, circulated throughout the vendor community on this matter, and allows the results to be returned and evaluated and presented to the board for your consideration in the future. So that's what I'd like to see the direction from the board this evening. If the board approves a second study and a vendor, and the results come back and suggest that more information is needed, we can act upon those matters at that time. But this should give you a reasonable indication that, in my opinion, that we're taking a very methodic approach to the matter, and that we're not rushing any of these matters going forward. So that ends my presentation. I know this is your first look at this as board members, and I imagine you have questions, and you might have questions this evening, or you might have questions in the future. But with that said, I'd like you to return to your seats, and we can have discussions.
All right, let's open it up to comments from the board. Anybody have any questions or comments related to the presentation and the timeline?
Thanks, Chris. Just a couple questions that just come off the top of my head seeing this is the committees that were created in the spring of last year. We never heard a report come from those committees, and I'm wondering how those committees fit into this process, if we're new committees or what the output that came from them would be. So that would be the first question for Dr. Zerbe. And then I guess the second question is the capacity portion. How much capacity are at the schools? You mentioned it presented again, and I don't know what that means, because I don't know if I ever really knew what the capacity study was from a public perspective. So those would be the two things off the top of my head.
So in regards to committees, I think that while there's been a definite span of time from their engagement to this point in time, I think we would have to reaffirm their commitment to the process, each of those committee members, to make sure that they're still interested in being involved. That would be the first step. The second step would be, once we've made that confirmation, we should be bouncing the RFP off of the committee that was first helping us with the RFP process, and get their feedback to ensure that all those matters that weren't part of the Pell study are at least reasonably addressed in the RFP, so that we don't find ourselves, asking, well, we should have asked for this, or we should have asked for that. So I think that's what we need to do with the committee. If in fact, there are members that no longer want to participate in the matter, then we should seek, additional help outside the community, and it would be a direction that I would seek from the board president as a matter of, how do we want to proceed with that. So, for example, if there's 10 people on a committee and only 2 want to continue participating in the matter, it might be beneficial for us to determine how we best, put that committee back in operation and make it have the numbers necessary to have quality input. So that's the matter of the committees. The second matter that you spoke about with regards to school capacity, there was a report produced and provided by Thompson Associates. He did present the capacity that's available in the buildings. There was a process in place going through a review of that. While he did make one public presentation, the committee never finished their work on the review of that last piece. So there is some work to be done on that, and it was kind of in the phase of holding up until we got to the second vendor for enrollment studies. But when that kind of fell apart in October, we kind of just stopped the process. So just to kind of clarify the history part of that.
Okay, just to clarify then, do you see any value for having the report out from the committees as they stand today, as they left it in the fall? So it seems like the individuals did some form of work, I don't know to what level, and they got to a certain point, and then from a perspective of engagement or disengagement, or what the issue is for the board to hear where they left off. Because without having that report back, we don't really know what was the output from those committees.
I know we had some feedback specifically on the enrollment projections. I don't know if we have, and I'd have to look back in my notes, if we have specific input on the capacity components of that. I know that we made a second presentation. We had Thompson meet with the capacity group, but I'd have to look back in my notes to see what the conclusion of that was.
I'm just talking about all the committees, not just the capacity.
There were 2 active committees, the redrawing of attendance area committee and the enrollment capacity and education committee. So there were 2 committees engaged at this point. The other 2 committees, I believe one was finance and the other one was a transition. They're mentioned here in this presentation this evening in a roundabout way. We talked about financial implications and talked about transitions, so they're mentioned in here, but they haven't started any work at all.
Okay, there we go. I don't have my notes with me from the property committee meetings. Scott, I don't know if you remember off the top of your head, the facilities assessment report, this timeline of April to May, is that in line with what we were told at that meeting? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Zerbe, we previously had an RFP for the enrollment study, and we got 2 responses, I believe, to that. So given that we're looking at the February-March timeline, it doesn't seem as though there's a lot of time to get the committees involved in order to have the RFP. I got the sense that you were thinking that you would develop the RFP for this at this point.
Well, just for clarity's sake, we had several vendors respond. We brought 2 of the vendors forward for the last decision in October. So I believe there were 5 or 6 vendors, if I recall. But we had a process to evaluate them, and we brought 2 to the board. In regards to preparing the RFP, it was my intent to prepare the RFP, but it also is my intent to share that RFP not only out with the board before it's released, but out with that committee, which is the Student Enrollment Capacity Committee. Because one of the problems that we ran into, in my opinion, is that we were looking for something after the fact that we didn't include in the RFP originally. So we were looking for, let's say, for example, a different methodology other than what Pell had. But we didn't specify that in the RFP. That wasn't the matter of concern at that time. But once the RFP was released and we started hearing back from the vendors, that seemed to be the reoccurring theme that rose to the top of the chart of issues.
So the new RFP would ask for a different method, and would it ask for anything else, or is it simply the same RFP with just the different method added to it?
Well, I think we need to not only look at the methodology, to seek a different methodology, but also to seek other types of projections. I mentioned in the report here, it would be interesting to ensure that, because there was such a high level of concern for the placement of special education students in specific classrooms, that we also look specifically at if there's a projection that can help us determine where our special education population may be in the future as well. So I think that wasn't in the original report. So we look at some of those demographic things. I think there were some economical considerations, meaning the economy, and quite a few other matters. It would require me to really go back, review the details from the subcommittees and from the meeting minutes to put all that together to share back with the board and to that committee. But it would be my intent, if the board gives me such direction this evening, to start working on that. Because I really do believe, as this outline, this timeline so indicates, that we really can't do anything until we have a reasonable level of confidence in a report. And while some people may say the Pell study's fine, there's enough skepticism that I can't recommend that we go any further until we have a second opinion on it.
Go ahead, Brenda.
I love the way you have this spelled out so that we have month after month after month. It's very clear what to expect at what point, and I think that's really a valuable addition to how we've done it before. But in April, May, you have presentation of capacity information. And would you have a different vendor do that, or do you see Jim Thompson coming back and giving us more information, or are we doing a different route?
I don't see us bringing Jim Thompson back. What I do see is taking that information and gathering it. It would likely be something that would be presented by myself or someone or a group of us within the administration. That presentation has to be, we're not giving you any new information. But I think it's important that, because we have 6 new board members, that you see that information and that we share that information again, because I think that capacity information will weigh heavily on your decision in June. And so I think you need that in order to make the right, or make a decision, a proper decision, as individuals and as a board. But without that, I don't think that you'd be well prepared. So I'd like to be able to present that, so long as the board wants that to happen.
Brenda, you kind of just said what I wanted to say, so I wanted to reiterate it. First, I do want to thank Dr. Zerbe for kind of starting over, and it's appreciated. And I appreciate the members of the board who sat through hours and hours and did some of this work already. Whether it needed to be redone or not, I wanted to thank you. And as Brenda said, having a timeline and being aware of when information is going to be shared feels like a good process. And what I would say, and thank you so I don't sound like the bad guy here, I would feel much better when the capacity is shared, that it not be someone from outside the district. It needs to be, I remember sitting in the audience being like, what in the world are you talking about? He kept, he was referring to things outside of our area and what they've done here and what they've done there, and there didn't seem to be a knowledge of every single building here. So I would like to reiterate what you had just said, Dr. Zerbe, that it would be better for someone more knowledgeable with Methacton and Methacton's buildings to present the true capacity the way it is. And I think that's really important because that's information that we do need in June. So thank you. And I'm comfortable just saying to go ahead with the RFP. I know it requires more than just me saying that, but I wanted to say that publicly.
Just to follow up on the capacity issue, one of the things since I started sitting on the board that I'd like to see is it seems like we should get in a routine that we do get a capacity report for the board by school, by teacher on a regular basis. I think that would be extremely helpful as we continue to watch the trends of what's happening and not just wait to a single point in time. But just my guess is, and I don't know, that we collect student information at the school level now as it is, and to me it would be helpful to have that baseline and understand by school, by teacher, 25 seats, 23 used, and I know that number probably doesn't change very much month to month, but I think that would be helpful between now and the end. I think it's helpful always, but certainly between now and the end of the year when we're going to be making decisions based on information that comes forth.
So just a quick response to that. A lot of that information we kind of already provide, but in a roundabout way, not in a. So we talk about class sizes. We talk about enrollment in the classes. So maybe there's a better way we can package that up for our discussion on this particular topic.
Yeah, and I don't want to make this complicated. It seems like you got X classrooms, we say there's X seats in the classroom, and just kind of keep it simple, but it'll give us a good idea, I think. So I would appreciate that.
Good evening. One of the things I question is, starting back into this process, the public hearings, and Frank would be able to tell us, but we're done with the public hearing portion of it. We never closed this as a board where we have to reopen it.
No, the process can be stopped at any time. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. The process can be stopped at any time. You began the process under the school code to look at the closure of one or two schools when you initially started. That was stopped, and the last time I was at a meeting here, you had a motion that it was going to be deferred for a period of time. Number one, you don't have to start that process over again unless you're going to do it and go in another direction. If you were going to focus on the same school that was focused on the last time, you can continue with that. If you're not going to do that, then I would suggest that you start that process over, but there is nothing that you need to do to close a process. If you don't complete the process, then you just don't close a school.
Thank you. So going forward here, I understand the enrollment study. Are we going to go back and also look at the utilization study, or have the board take another look at that? Also, our justification for the school closures was based on utilization study, but also we never really looked at it as a budget end. We didn't know what the numbers were potentially as how it would affect our budget, but are we going to look at it, go back and look at both schools, being that when we first originally looked at the closing one or two schools, our conclusion was that the second school would have to wait 2 or 3 years down the road, because of the way the enrollment was declining. So my question is, with this new enrollment study, will we look at another utilization study, look at it also at the budget end, whether or not adding on to another school, just the utilization of our space to the best of our ability, and what it means to us budget-wise, educationally. So where's our direction? I understand, we're looking at Audubon, but there was a bigger picture at the time, and I don't want, I think the new board needs to see the whole picture going forward, how it affects our budget, the conditions of the schools, how our utilization is. So, excuse me. So that's, I'm not saying go through public hearings again and all that, but I believe that the new board should be brought up to speed and it should be looked at with fresh eyes and see the big picture. I mean, we're starting to deal with our budget. We have negotiations, all this stuff coming up, and I think it's to get the whole picture of the condition of the school district and how to go forward.
Well, Mr. Phillips, I think that in the third page of my slide, items to consider, I kind of put things in what I felt were really the priority order. And first of all, whatever this timeline was to consider based on the timing and the impact on the community. So I felt that was top priority. The second thing is we can't move forward with any decision without another RFP and another enrollment study. We just can't. And then, as you can see, the third option is really, the educational financial impact of the potential outcomes. So while I think your point, if I understand what you're saying, your point is, Thompson presented a full capacity study of all of our buildings, elementary, Skyview, Arcola, and the high school. We certainly, if that's the direction at the time in May, if the board wants that type of representation, we can do that. I mean, we have the information, and we can represent that, and we can confirm that original data from Thompson, either confirm it or deny it based on our own internal understanding of and timing of that presentation. So if that's the direction of the board, then we can certainly do that. If we're just going to focus on the capacity of elementary buildings, we can certainly do that. But I think that's that's the direction I need to get at that point. I don't think I need that direction here this evening. I think it's important that we start considering the stuff before us, because I think after you absorb this a little bit more, you might have some additional questions and thoughts. And this is not a bulletproof process. So what I mean by that is, we need to make sure that you work with me in following these same considerations. Whatever we need to do, we want to be thoughtful in respects to the information needs. We want to make sure that we get the study out, and we look at those implications. The facility assessment is likely going to give us a whole set of new perspective on all of our buildings. As Mr. Bartle mentioned, maybe after we see that report, there could be information in that report that suggests that different buildings ought to be considered. I don't know that. I don't have the report, and I don't know what to expect. But I can tell you that I tried to put all those things in there that we need to talk about. And if we need to adjust it along the way, I think it's flexible enough. It gives us enough time and some breathing room to do that. We just need to stay on top of it, and it needs to be a topic of our conversation on a regular basis for the coming months.
So what you're looking for tonight is just a motion on doing another study on enrollment.
Well, I don't think I necessarily need a vote on that matter. I think I just need to say, hey, Dave, the direction is to really produce an RFP, get it out on the street. The actual action by the board then will be to potentially, in the coming month or so, to approve a vendor. if I'm able to present one for you. So that's really the action that I'm suggesting you'll need, a little more than a month from now.
Just one more comment from me. What I want to make sure of as we approach this is that we don't have a building identified. For me, I don't want to lead with a potential answer. I want to let the data unfold into the options that we would take. So I hear Audubon, and I know that was tagged the last time, and there was a tag on Arrowhead, but I really think it behooves this board and Dr. Zerbe as we approach this study to not say or connotate in any way if a building is selected, what building that might be at this point in time. I think we just have to let the data, whether it's the facility study, whether it's the enrollment studies, or what it'll be, the combination thereof, let that come forward. And if that requires an additional hearing because it's not Audubon, and I'm not, Frank, completely sure whether that would be the case. I know that a couple buildings were mentioned before, then so be it, we have another hearing. But I really don't want to lead with a potential answer as we go forward into this next phase.
I agree. That's an important statement. And it will include multiple pieces of information, not just the facilities assessment, the educational implications, other financial implications.
Just a couple quick things. I do like the way that this is laid out and the order that it is, and it fits our timeline and the way that we would like to see this move forward. Do we see any issues with what I would consider possibly quick turnarounds for the vendors? So if we say in April or May, the board selects the vendor to conduct the enrollment study, and then we have them in June presenting their results. Is that enough time, based off of what we saw the last time and what we put into our RFP? Is a month to 2 months enough time for them to truly get back to us? And it basically is the same for the redrawing of attendance areas. Basically the same thing. It's June, and then they're presenting in July and August. And if there is an issue with the timeline, what flexibility does that give us in the end if we truly are trying to make a decision for the 2017-2018 school year?
Good questions. So the timeline for those two items regarding redrawing of attendance areas and for an enrollment study are based upon the feedback that we received from the last RFP process. So if you recall, it takes about 2 months for an enrollment projection to be completed and presented, and it was estimated about 4 months. Well, one vendor had something as much as 6 months. But most of the vendors had about a 4-month window that would be required for the redrawing of attendance areas, which included significant public input in the process. So I use that information to balance this timeline out.
And then just getting to Jim's point where he had brought up the financial implications of this, and at some point down the road that's something that we need to look at, and some members of the board have already seen what that looks like. I would like that to be a presentation to all involved. I don't think that, because there's still members who are sitting up here now who don't know what the financial implications are. We've heard the $1 million number thrown around a couple times. I don't know where that comes from, and I think that if this is a true decision based off of what's best for the district, whether it's enrollment driving it, capacity driving it, or if it's financially, implicated driving this, I think that needs to be put in front of the public too. So I would just hope that when we get to that point, it's not, the board gets to see the financial implications, that the public as well gets to see.
Good point.
One other last point, and a lot of good input there. I just want to make sure that we don't repeat any mistakes with this RFP. So if we have inputs that people have been looking for or caused strife in the committees, that we take some of those inputs. And mistakes, I'm using in quotes because it doesn't mean that it truly is a mistake or not, but we really need to make sure that some of that input is put into the process and not that we start completely fresh.
My turn. Okay. Couple comments. So we had a couple of the committees that put in a decent amount of work. If there's some way to get a summary of that to us, so I think that'll be useful background information, because we're going to have lulls for us, whether we're waiting on a capacity study or some other things, where it'd be good to take advantage of that time to, get us up to speed on everything that's done and understand everything. To Scott's point, I think, not targeting specific schools, but the question is, how do we make our school district healthy and sustainable long-term? And what does that mean from a building perspective? Because I don't want to leave anything off the table in terms of how do we achieve that. And that plays into what our finance committee does, it plays into what our property committee does, it plays into what our education committee and all the other committees, how are we making our school district healthy and sustainable. The enrollment projection study, I've been on the other side of the fence quite a bit from these RFPs. If we put in there a timeline that we need to hit to, it's their responsibility as vendors trying to win the business to, build confidence in us that they can do that. Some of the comments I've been giving Dr. Zerbe related to the enrollment projections is based on my professional experience, and we want additional information taken into account into the enrollment study so that we get the best answer, whatever that is. And if you look at more recent data, even from last year, you'll start to see that the birth rate's flattening out and some areas starting to come back. So what does that mean long term? Dr. Zerbe mentioned the special education. Theoretically, we could continue to have a drop in our top line enrollment projections, but our capacity as a school district increases depending on what happens with special education. That would be kind of an extreme example, but it's why you need to look at additional information so you really understand long term what we need so we can plan appropriately. So, I'm all for the second enrollment study. Based on my professional experience, I'm going to be giving some input, and everybody else, I'd hope that you would take some time to give some input around that based on your experiences. And I already have, I can't count the number of emails I've gotten over the last 12 months from people that have an interest from the community around the enrollment projections, but we'll be looking for them to provide their input as well. In the end of this whole process, if we follow this timeline, we stick to it, and whatever point we get to, whether it's that we aren't taking any action and we kind of end it there, or we are taking some type of action and we're coming up on January where we're communicating to the public. My goal for us all, and I challenge everybody on this side of the table and everybody out there that can help out, we should understand what the action is. We shouldn't have a room full of people saying, why did you do this? It should be clear. It's not necessarily going to be agreed upon by everybody, but there should be enough communication, enough understanding on both sides of the table, so whatever we do at the point here in terms of making a decision, it's well thought out and well understood. So unless anybody has any concerns with moving ahead with the enrollment projection, we'll give Dr. Zerbe the direction to start working on that RFP.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That ends my reports, for the guest speakers this evening. On to reports. Number 6.
And Mr. Ryan, can you give us an update on the Finance Committee?
Thank you, Mr. President. The Finance Committee met on February 16th at 7 p.m. Prior to the board work session. There were 3 items listed on the agenda for that evening. The first 2 were revolving around a list of bills in the Treasury report. And the third item on the agenda that evening was the 2016-2017 MCIU budget. In terms of where Methacton stands year to date, both revenue and expenditures are down as compared to prior year. Revenue is down about $2.58 million versus last year. $1.8 million of this is due to the sale of the buses in the prior year. Obviously, we can only sell our buses one time. Other items accounting for the decrease in revenue are a decrease in the earned income tax, which is likely due to a timing issue, decrease in delinquent real estate tax collections, kind of a trade-off between the real estate current collections versus what's delinquent. We've seen an uptick in our current collections, so obviously our delinquent will decrease. And we've also seen a decrease in the IDEA funds. With partial funding released from the state, our state revenues are actually only down about $30,000 as compared to last year. In terms of expenditures, we're down about $1 million from last year. Many of the drivers of this are due to timing issues, not necessarily savings. Some examples given, health insurance payments, 7 payments in the current year versus 8 payments in the prior year. Salaries along the same lines, 15 pays in the current year as opposed to 16 in the prior year. Mr. Whiteleather and the Finance Committee will continue to closely track our revenue and expenditures as compared to the prior year and to our budget. In terms of the MCIU budget for 2016-2017, the Finance Committee unanimously agreed to bring it forward to the full board's consideration this evening. The total amount of the budget for the IU is $1,940,003, of which $77,413 is Methacton's share. This is a slight decrease from the prior year. And that concluded our Finance Committee meeting, but the budget presentation and the discussion for the next year was included in the board work session. In terms of the budget for 2016-2017, Dr. Zerbe and Mr. Whiteleather provided an updated look at the preliminary numbers. We saw for the preliminary budget, it initially showed a shortage of about $5.2 million. Which would result in a proposed local tax increase of 6.74%. The administration was tasked at last month's board meeting to come back showing what a 2.4% tax increase would look like. During the presentation, Mr. Whiteleather discussed some of the savings we have seen since that time frame, and those totaled about $1.1 million. Items included in those savings were employee medical insurance savings, debt refunding, diesel fuel, etc. That would put the current budget shortage at around $4.1 million. Some recommendations made by the administration, which will be discussed in the coming months, include further debt refunding, possible restructuring, transportation route review, expanding the employee medical waiver incentive, professional staff early retirement incentive, and a continued building and departmental budget review. A combination of any and all of these items would help close that budget gap that I just mentioned. If anyone from the public is interested in that presentation but was unable to make the work session, a link to the budget presentation is available on the district website under the Business Office, Budget Information, and Budget Presentations. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Now from the Property Committee, Mr. Dorn.
Yes, thank you. We met on February 8th at 6:30. There were 3 items on the agenda. The 3 items were what was called the ESCO project, which is really an energy efficiency project. We've gotten an update on it. They're in their final phases. We're working on the punch list. The good thing is the initial reports show that we're tracking to about an $85,000 save annually by the work that was done in the high school in Arcola and Skyview. The good part is the initial reports from the meter readings is that we might be hitting about an 8 to 10% additional savings from the work that was being done. So it's really having an impact on our budget. We talked a little bit about the Phase 2 and some additional work that will be done in the elementary schools as we continue to look for opportunities to become more energy efficient, not only in the electrical, but as far as water goes, mechanical systems, etc. So all in all, a good report. The second item on the agenda is called the AEM Facilities Assessment Study. We heard that talked about a little bit tonight. We've hired a company called AEM to take a look at our facilities across the school district, give an as-is assessment, and then take a look at a 0 to 5 year projection, a 5 to 10 year projection, and a 10-year plus projection in what will be needed in our facilities to maintain them in a safe and efficient manner that will provide the correct educational spaces for our students to learn in and our teachers and administrators to work in. The third item that we talked about was the building entrance safety study. Mr. Fretz, who leads the facilities organization for the school district, made a presentation. He's been tasked with taking a look at all of our facilities, how we enter the facilities, who enters, are they basically safe to keep people out that we don't want to go. This is a matter of looking at both the physical side of the buildings, but also the process side of the buildings. So how do you gain, once you harden or put improvements in place, what's the process for entering and greeting and meeting and escorting, et cetera. So it's really a two-pronged approach. That report will be given to us in the April properties meeting. I should go backwards to the facility assessment. We will be getting a report out in the April-May timeframe from AEM so that we can plan and use that information not only as we look at the potential closings, but also as we look at our strategic planning across the school district. There were a couple of questions from the courtesy of the floor regarding the ESCO project that were answered as well. One thing I did miss, as far as attendance goes, all the committee members were present with the exception of Mr. Phillips. And that ended our session.
Thank you, sir. The Education Committee, Ms. Reese.
The Education Committee also met on February 8th after some snow rescheduling. All the committee members were in attendance. In the few minutes, I'll try to explain everything that Dr. Katona explained. Basically, under Actions to Support Achievement and Growth, Dr. Katona really described everything from soup to nuts that we're doing in the district in math and ELA, separated out by grade level, K to 4, 5 to 9, in math, and in ELA, K to 4, 5 and 6, and 7 to 12, everything from data collection, assessments, teaching techniques, the collaboration with the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit, professional development, curriculum material. It was very in-depth, and as a parent and as an educator and as my first meeting as a chair of the Education Committee, I came out of that meeting going, wow, everyone's really working hard and doing everything that we can in order to keep the curriculum up to date and the best it can be for our students. We moved on to Mr. Sosnovic, who gave some information on the educational technology. He shared the results of a Bright Byte survey, which just emphasized not only the technology we're using in grades 4 to 12, but different areas in the technology and what that means to our students. One interesting thing that came out of it was digital citizenship, and basically what that means is all of our students are using technology. How are they using it in safe regards and also educationally, not just going on using a computer in dangerous ways and in inappropriate ways. And then Dr. Engstad explained, probably as well as I've ever heard it explained, all the different Act 16 reporting that is needed for funding and the different needs in our special education department. And before we ended, we always do an enrollment report, and to back up what Mr. Dorn said, it's very general to each building, but we have asked as a committee to get more specific information so that we have a handle on specific grade level and numbers. And that was it in a nutshell.
All right, thank you. Andrea, you can turn your mic off. All right, let's move on to the Policy Committee.
Andrea can turn her mic back on because I was sick and Andrea had to cover for me for policy. Sorry.
and we had seen each other the day before at a school function, and I had joked, "You better be there," and she wasn't. But just to give some people an idea of the policy committee, because I think it's an important committee that some people are like, what is that? The school has different policies, and they have to be reviewed, and they have to be added to based on different legalities and different recommendations from the public school board. So we had a few things to review and add to. We took care of that, a few things that we needed some clarification on, and those will be up for reading this evening. And the one thing that might have people have questions about is we're trying to get explanations of these committees, and that was one of the things we also discussed at the policy committee.
Thank you. And now, Ms. Hackett, you.
The Montgomery County Intermediate Unit met on January 27th. They meet the day after our meeting. And they reported at that meeting that the IUs throughout the state received 95% of their state funding in the disbursement made at the beginning of the year. This was through the budget impasse. And so therefore the IU did not need to borrow funds. This 95% compares to the 45% that school districts received, so they're in pretty decent shape. As you'll see on the agenda, and has already been discussed, the IU budget is up for approval. The school districts of the county are expected to pay a portion of the IU budget. Approximately 1% of the total budget is paid by the districts in this way. And as was mentioned, there's no increase. The state approved a portion of the pre-K Counts program. We had some discussion about that during the year when we offered to provide one classroom at the Eagleville School. They only received a portion of it. They have decided to open 5 classrooms in Norristown, serving approximately 100 children. And it was hoped that this site, which is at the old IU building at 1605 West Main Street, many people will probably be familiar with, they're hoping it would open during February. I'll probably find out tomorrow night if it did. Staffing and enrollment will happen first. The state requires that the program address the most needy areas in the county first. And in order in Montgomery County, they are Norristown, North Penn, and Abington. So we authorized offering 1 or more classrooms at Eagleville. We will not get one in the current year. With hope for expansion next year, the MCIU may be able to place a classroom in Methacton next year. Another item of note was that the board voted to close a Head Start facility in Green Lane in the far northwest part of the county. This was for economic reasons, including providing salary increases to the staff who receive very low pay. Hopefully, by increasing the pay, there will be greater stability among the staff, resulting in a better program for the children. The downside is that the children who were being served by this program, approximately 20 children, no longer have a Head Start program to attend unless their parents are able to get them to Pottstown, which is about an additional half-hour trip. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. The North Monco-Tech.
I'll give that report tonight. Basically, the JOC meeting occurred on the 17th of February. 2 main topics were discussed. Number 1 was the roofing project, which is basically the last of the major capital items that the tech center needs to do. It was a lively discussion, I must admit, having about this as the tech center administration had a presentation on the roof. However, it was determined by the JOC that not enough bids were collected, improper bids were collected, and a whole litany of discussion pursued. So basically what they're going to do is go get new bids, better reflect what we want to do with that roof. Like I said, it is the last major capital thing that they need to do on that building. The other major part of the discussion was the budget. They basically went through, had a nice budget presentation. Methacton's share will be 13.46% of the budget this year. So our total contribution will be $1,302,235. Major increases in that. That's their budget's going up about 6.3%. Major things that are impacting that are the PSERS increase, about $115,000 net. Debt payments are going up, and also services provided to the districts are the three main drivers of the increase. So there is some good news. The adult education revenue is going up, which is good. One concern that I had was the use of fund balance that they are going to be doing. They have about a little over $1 million in fund balance. They're going to use about $500,000 of that for the roof, leaving their fund balance very low. However, the consensus was that the fact that there's really no other capital campaign items left on their list, the fund balance will grow pretty rapidly over the next few years, reaching the targeted numbers. So that's basically the end of my report on that. Unless Andrea has anything to go on that.
I had to leave that meeting early, but thank you for sitting through the rest of the roof conversation. That was interesting. I just wanted to plug something for the Technical Center because it's happening before our next board meeting on March 12th. Any of those people who celebrate Easter, the children who work at the school, who work in the hotel restaurant, have a breakfast with the Easter Bunny from 9 to 11 on the 12th. It's reasonable. There's photos, so if you want to avoid the mall and support the Technical Center, you can go on their website.
Thank you.
Just one question for Herb. How many students are attending from Methacton this year to the...
I do not have that information. I do not have that information.
Okay.
Maybe when the administration...
Maybe Stuart or Dave can find that out.
I can find the information out and send it to the board in our weekly memo.
Yeah, I'd just like to see how much it comes out per pupil.
Yep.
That $1.3 million. Thanks.
No problem.
I will add one more thing on that, to Mr. Phillips' point. It was pointed out that the enrollment capacity of the Tech Center is basically, they're almost there. As far as, like, if they were to get a huge influx of students, they might start having problems in filling the classes correctly. There just may not be enough room. So, which is a good thing. That means the center is being used well. And there's always room to grow in certain areas. It was kind of indicated that they are getting close to that capacity level.
All right, on to communications. Sorry. Oh, sorry, I passed the students.
Thank you.
I'm toying with you.
Last Thursday, Methacton had its annual senior banquet. It was a very nice event at Normandy Farms, and the DJ and food were really great. And we had some nice fun superlatives for the seniors, which are just fun awards that the students look forward to every year. And this week, the theater company will be performing Into the Woods, and it's a neat twist on like your typical fairy tales. And the shows start this Thursday, and you can find the times on Methacton's website. And also, this is a time of year where there's a lot of clinics for the youth of the community. And so there's been some field hockey clinics on Mondays and during the week, and then there's also a girls lacrosse clinic this Saturday. So it's a really great opportunity for those younger people of the community.
Thank you. In sports, Methacton students continue to shine. The Methacton boys swimming team prospered as junior Greg Stimler and senior Kevin Roy took first and second, respectively, in diving at the Perkiomen Valley Invitational. With amazing performances by Gil Price, Joshua Bricky, and Michael Palumbo, the boys finished fourth place overall out of 14 teams. The girls swimming team saw junior Julie Diamore win the diving event at the Perkiomen Valley Invitational, along with strong individual races posted by junior Emily Sykes and senior Sarah Liebold. Currently, 6 girls are training for the district swim meet and 4 are training for the state meet. The wrestling team had 11 out of 14 varsity wrestlers qualify for the district tournament, which is the highest number ever. Dylan Henry was undefeated throughout the season. Bryce Reddington had the most wins for the team. The boys' winter track team had a spectacular season, with various records falling at the hands of Nick Schaefer, who broke the 300-meter record and qualified for states in the 200-meter race, Nick DeFilippis, who broke the 600-meter record, and Jeff Christianbaum, who broke the 2-mile, mile, and 3K records, along with qualifying for the state and national 3K race. Finally, the girls' basketball team finished the season with Sydney Thompson, Ryan DiOrio, and Jackie Sergio placing the top 15 scorers of the Pac-10. Sydney Thompson and Ryan DiOrio had the third and fifth most three-point field goals in the Pac-10, and Ryan DiOrio was named to the Pac-10 second team. Congrats to all of our students, and that concludes our reports.
Thank you very much. Now, communication, Ms. Litch.
I'm going to use my report just to talk a little bit about some upcoming events here in the school district. One that I'm particularly proud of because my assistant worked really hard on it, as did I. We'll be welcoming more than 90 senior citizens to Methacton High School tomorrow, on Thursday evening, where they'll be the first to see the Methacton High School musical Into the Woods. After the show, the seniors will make their way to the cafeteria, where they'll enjoy a catered dinner served by our student ambassadors and members of the theater crew. Members of the cast will also be on hand in costumes for photos and conversation with these honored members of our community, and this intergenerational program is run through our community education program. The next, Mr. Constable completely stole my thunder on. As the Administrative Director of the Education Foundation, I am so pleased to add my thanks to all in the Education Foundation Board, as well as Dr. Zerbe, that the Our Corks and Forks event will go to benefit the Methacton High School Marching Band trip to the Outback Bowl in January. So exciting, such an honor for our school and for this entire community to have our students participate in such a prestigious event. So congratulations to Mr. McCoach and to the students for even being invited to participate. It'll be a huge fundraising effort, so if you can make your way to the Art Corks and Forks, it will be a huge help in helping the students, each of whom individually will have to raise $800 to attend the event, and that's not including the many, many tens of thousands of dollars that the Methacton High School Band Marching Band boosters will have to raise for the overall trip. The EFMC is proud to continue the tradition of utilizing this event to support the arts in every form in Methacton, and we're looking forward to seeing all of you at Chadwick's on April 4th. Tickets are available online. Also, Methacton High School Post-Prom Fundraiser will be Saturday, March 5th at the Empress Room in St. Helena's. There's a link on our website to purchase tickets for that important fundraising event as well. The Methacton High School Prom is for juniors and seniors, and this amazing event, which is really a standalone in the entire state. Very, very, very few high schools are able to run successful post-prom events. Here in Methacton, over 90% of our students who attend the prom do choose to attend the post-prom party. So it's a fantastic event that promotes good choices among our students and gives them a safe place to go after the prom. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. And now on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. On February 11th and 17th, I provided updates to our community on the status of the improvements to the high school athletic fields. The most recent update was very exciting, and I'm happy to report again that we now have lights. The lights are raised on the auxiliary field this month, and we look forward to the completion of the installation of lights on the stadium field in the coming weeks. Our strategic planning continues with subcommittee and steering committee members working alongside our administrators to finalize goals from the discussions that took place at meetings in December and January. Recently, suggested revisions to the vision, mission, and core values were shared with the faculty and staff, as well as members of the committee in order to gather their feedback. Committee co-chairs and members of the steering committee will meet next week to continue their work on goals as we prepare our final meeting for the whole group in April while we remain on target to prepare a plan for a public presentation in April. That ends my report.
All right, thank you. Before we go on to the public comment, if you two want to exit, feel free. All right, just leave whenever you want. It's a school night. Moving on to the public comment.
Candy Alaba, Eggville. I was looking at the supplemental contracts, And I noticed the supplemental contract for outdoor ed is $11,000. My first question is, how long is outdoor ed now? How many days? Is it, from what I understand, it's just an overnight trip? I mean, I'm sure maybe some of the school directors haven't had children that have gone through it yet, because I know years ago it used to be a 3 or 4 day trip with like 3 or 4 days, 2 or 3 days overnight. If this is just, and I understand last year it was an overnight trip, they left one day, came home the next. $11,000 is a lot of money for an overnight trip. And I also know, sitting here in the room, the last couple of years, outdoor ed has become a financial burden on some families. Some of the families can't afford to send their children to outdoor ed, and it can be hard for a child to be left behind. And I heard a comment made this week that there was a progressive decision to make on a tradition in Methacton. I think maybe a progressive decision has to be made about outdoor ed. It was wonderful when it was a 3 or 4 day. The kids were gone for 3 or 4 days. There was a lot of activities. My son participated. The 5th grade room moms, 2 of us put together a booklet, an album of their days, which we did it on our own money, handed it out to all the 5th graders at Eagleville. It was a nice memory. But $11,000 to pay the teachers to go overnight and 1 nurse, I think that needs to be looked. That's a lot of money for an overnight trip. And I'm sure, if I understand, outdoor ed was over $100 a child last year. I think the parents like to take that $100 and take their child down to the shore for the day. But I think this is something that needs to be looked into. I hate to see this program go away, but maybe it's run its course. It's becoming very expensive. And I'm sure the reason it's expensive is the liability, because you have to make sure if the children get hurt that there's coverage for it. But this is a lot of money, and it should be looked into. Maybe a progressive decision has to be made to end another tradition in Methacton, I don't know. But it should be, the current board should look into this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
John Andrews, Lower Providence. Good evening. Prior boards have limited leases to the few-year or short-term cost of computers and other technology items. On the list of bills for consideration tonight, I'm questioning a general fund expense, paying off a lease with a Bank of America for sports lighting in the amount of about $341,000. I have a series of questions, and hopefully the business manager can respond. Where this is mostly a new board, I think the board may not have information about this large item. Is this for the turf lighting project? Isn't this a long life item rather than a short life item?
Let me answer the question.
Yes, the answer to your first question is yes.
And it's cited as an INT period payment. Does INT mean interest or interim?
Ask the question one more time.
The expense item is cited in the list of bills as an INT period payment. Does INT mean interest, interim, or something else?
I would need to look at it before I'd be able to provide you with an answer, Mr. Andrews. Off the top of my head, I would not be able to answer that question without looking at what you're referring to.
If it's an interim payment, what is the whole or entire amount? And why is it being paid from the general fund?
Again, Mr. Andrews, without seeing exactly what you're referring to, I can't address the question.
And if there was a lease, was it approved in advance by a public board vote? I thought we were sending field construction bills to the Emmaus Authority, as noted in the Treasurer's reports, per the terms of the bond issue for the Fields project.
Mr. Andrews, if I could, sorry to interrupt, but you have very specific questions that I'd appreciate if you could share with Ms. Lynch upon your conclusion of your questions in the public meeting, so that we can respond to them
Yeah, I
in the very near
can do
future.
that, but, you know, the item is up for a vote this evening, and maybe it can be deferred. So it seems like we need an explanation on this substantial item. Thank you.
Thank you. Ashley?
Is now the appropriate time to make comments regarding the RFP and the presentation, or are you going to do a separate public comment when you...
Related to what?
The RFP for enrollment and such?
We didn't ask for a board to take official action on the RFP or any timeline associated with school consolidation. So if you have a question regarding that area, probably the end of the meeting would probably be the best time.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Any other public comment? Okay, then we'll move on. The board meeting minutes. We want to approve the board meeting minutes of the meeting held on January 26, 2016 that are attached. May I have a motion to approve the board meeting minutes? Herb, can I have a second? Kim? Any comments from the board? Okay. All those in favor? All those against? Okay. It passes by a vote of 9-0. Let's move on to the fiscal items. Mr. Whiteleather.
Thank you. There are 3 items on for your approval this evening. All 3 of the items were reviewed by our Finance Committee last week, and all are on for your approval this evening. Thank you.
I just have a question. Can we, I understand you might not be able to answer specifically, but can we address the question about the $341,000? It's a legitimate question from the audience, and it is a large thing. It might be a very easy explanation, and I understand that you don't want to speak to something you can't answer, but since it's listed here, could we just address that, since it is a large amount of money?
Yes, essentially, we were approved by the board on November 24th of 2015 to proceed with to have the administration proceed with the purchase and installation of lighting on both the auxiliary and stadium fields. At that meeting, the approval was granted by the board to do such. The expenditure that you see there, it results from that approval, and that's what it results in. We have the lights already up; they're here, and most of them are already in place. So it's my recommendation. While the gentleman with the question reserves the right to ask the questions and deserves a more fuller explanation, and we will do so if he provides that information to Ms. Lynch. I do recommend that you approve that item this evening.
Okay, so let's do the treasurer's report. Approve the treasurer's report attached. May I have a motion to approve the list of bills and treasurer's report? Oh. Yes.
Excuse me, could we take those separately? List of bills separately from the treasurer's report?
Yes, and we must do the MCIU budget separately as well. That will be a roll call vote.
So do you want to do? So you want to do separately the list of bills and then do? Sure. Okay. So may I have a motion to approve the list of bills? I'll go with Scott on that, and then is there a second? Or can I have a motion? Any comments from the board on the list of bills, other than what we've already commented on? Okay.
Chris, just real quick, I think to Andrea's point is we do need to find a better process when we do have these questions. If they come up, and there was a question at the last meeting that he said we would get answered. I realize that we're not trying to put anybody on the spot, but we need to have a follow-up process so that when these questions are there and publicly there, we should make sure that we follow up. And from that perspective, I realize in this particular one, the lights are up, the bill's already paid.
Yeah.
So it's, from my perspective, we're going to move on, but also to answer the questions in some form. Okay. Scott?
And the process that we've been trying to proceed with is if we do not have the information available at the table at the time of the question in the public meeting, we've been making Ms. Lynch be the collector of that information, and then we, even as of today, I think we sent an email out to a member of the public from a previous a board meeting. So we are making those attempts to communicate, but...
One thought about that is any of the questions where we send a response to the person, maybe we can attach that to the next month's meeting agenda or something so that somehow it becomes public for everybody or something like that.
We can attach it to the minutes of the meeting. That's fair.
So I'd like to know answers to those questions too in some cases, so yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. I think the issue with the list of bills, it's a retroactive approval. The money's been spent. So now it's a matter of paying your suppliers. Am I correct with that?
Yeah.
So I do think, as the questions have been asked, we need to make sure we get the answers. I like the mechanism of attaching the answers to the meeting, but we also have a financial obligation to pay the bills, but the public does need to have the transparency into the details if the details aren't provided on the list of bills.
Yes. Okay. So that concludes the comments for the approval of the list of the bills.
One comment on the list of bills. Dave, as far as when they go on our website, typically, what's the first day that they're put up on the site?
Well, the information is typically posted 72 hours, per the new direction of the board, it's posted 72 hours in advance of a meeting. So this was posted 72 hours in advance of the work session, which was on the same evening as the Finance Committee meeting, and therefore these items are again posted 72 hours in advance of the actual voting meeting as well. So they've been on approximately 2 weeks, if not a little longer.
Okay, that's what I was getting at, is the chronological order of when this is posted and when the board first gets to look at it, and there's basically a 2-week window to today for the board to review them, correct? Okay.
Okay, any other comments? All right, all those in favor? All those against? Okay, abstain? One abstain. All right. It passes by 8 in favor of and 1 abstain.
If you can mention for the record, he was abstaining, since we're required to rule.
Okay.
And why?
Ms. Hackett. And why?
There's a check to me on the list.
100% raise on your school board salary. All right, let's move on to the treasurer's report. So may I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report? Michael, second. Kathy, or Brenda, sorry. May I have any comments on that? Okay. All those in favor? Passes unanimously, 9-0. Okay. Now on to the MCU. Approve the MCIU membership service budget for the 2016-17 in the amount of $1.940 million, and Methacton's contribution is $77,413. This represents a decrease of $637 from last year. May I have a motion to approve the MCIU member services budget. Jim, second. Herb, any comments? No discussion? All right. Now, for this, I need a roll call vote, so please answer with yes or no. Ms. Hodges?
Yes.
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 Yes. And yes for me. Unanimous. All right, now we'll move on to the personnel items. Mr. Harney, please.
Yes, we have two resignation classified for your approval this evening. We have one employment long-term substitute classified for your approval. We have something that was added this week, uncompensated leave professional. That's new to the list from last week. We have two uncompensated leaves classified. The second is a new addition this week. We have 6 supplemental contracts for your approval this evening. I'd like to bring your attention to number 6. That's an addition. We had a resignation from the list that you approved last month in that position, so this was a rehire for that position. So that changes the list that was given to you last month. We have 2 classified substitute additions for you. The second one is new this evening. We have the approved list of volunteers that you saw last week and 1 advisement.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the personnel items? Second. Any comment from the board? Jim?
Just under the outdoor education contracts, out at $11,642.13, the two that really stick out are the nurse and the coordinator. The nurse is $2,926.15, and the other is $2,011.38. As far as the nurse, I mean, if this is a one-day event, that it seems like you can hire somebody to come in cheaper than that. Just explain how that $2,900 is justified for a day's worth of work or overnight's worth of work, and the same thing with the coordinator.
The outdoor ed program runs over several days because not all the kids can go from like Monday or Tuesday. So I don't know exactly how long it goes, but I believe the nurse is there for the duration of the entire week. I don't know exact days because it's been a while since my kids went through the outdoor ed program, but it does run several days, and that's why there's so many teachers in there. They're overlapping, and you come and go, and it's like a constant revolving door of kids and teachers and volunteer parents. So
is the nurse per diem, or is that, how's that number figured out, and also with the coordinator?
That is her number per diem times every day that she went. So if you take the single day of a 335.23 and multiply that or divide that into the 29.26, it'll tell you how many days they went on the trip. And I couldn't do that quick off the top of my head. I was trying to get my phone out, but I did not. Additionally, with the coordinator, he goes to additional days, but he also has extra duties, so his compensation is built around not only his participation, but also his planning and the extra administrative duties that he does. And you'll also see there was another person there with that had a double $670, and that was a 2-day payment for that teacher who is an emotional support teacher that had to go into 2 trips.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Also, I'd like to make one other comment about outdoor ed. Seems to me years ago when it was run, the home and schools used to help out a lot with this. And over the years, that has diminished. And I remember one time we had a board vote where the home and schools, the district paid for the trip. Home and school was to reimburse us. And due to, I think it was during the recession years, that the board forgave that option. That's before Dr. Zerbe's time. But I know that Home and School has helped out in the past on that. I'm not sure what their involvement is. Again, my kids are long removed from that. So,
Any other comment? All right, all those in favor? Passes. All those against? Abstain? Nobody passes? 9-0. All right, curriculum and programs. Dr. Katona.
Okay, I do not have any action items this evening. However, I just wanted to give you an update on how kindergarten readiness program ran last Wednesday evening and what we're anticipating for our kindergarten registration in a couple of weeks. We ran our kindergarten readiness program on the 17th. We had about 116 adults and children registered to attend, which were representative of 65 families and 2 preschool providers. Based on our sign-in sheets, there were 74 adults that actually attended, which represented 48 families and 1 preschool provider. In addition to a presentation on kindergarten readiness, we also had a panel that answered questions for parents. The panel was comprised of kindergarten teachers, our elementary principals, and a couple of counselors and some central office personnel, administrators. We also are looking forward to our kindergarten registration, which is happening the week of March 14th. It will run every day that week. Each day we will have a different school represented by those who are registering the children and the nurse from different buildings, because the registrations will all occur at Woodland Elementary. Parents may register for any of the days. So far, we have, as of late this afternoon, we have about 75% of the slots for appointments filled. That is 179 families that have scheduled times already. Monday and Tuesday are filled, and we have some slots, about 60 slots remaining for the remainder of the week. During the registration process, parents will receive information regarding the kindergarten screenings, which will take place in their neighborhood schools in June. So just wanted to give you that update.
Thank you very much. Now on to policy, Dr. Zerbe.
Thank you, Mr. President. For first reading, which doesn't require any approval here by the board this evening, there are 8 policies, and as Ms. Reese had mentioned earlier, committee profiles. Just to bring attention to the board and the public, committee profiles is a result of discussions for a number of years by the board that pertains to, I believe, policy 005 that talks about the formation of committees and defining what the roles of those committees are. So the committee profiles are just that. They define the general parameters for which the committee shall operate and the type of information that they'll review. I believe that there was a question at the last work session about one of the committee profiles, and if there's any comments on the committee profiles and or the other policies, I'll be glad to take them now.
Yes, I had a comment about the Education Committee profile, because when we worked for many months developing this profile, I guess probably 7 or 8 months, and we ultimately had a profile that included a couple of items that are not on the one that is in the policies here. And the 2 items in particular that were on there were AP results and PVOS results, which were reports that we were expecting to get. And the purpose of the committee establishing these items as reports was that there would be a regular process by which certain reports would be given, and the logical thing for AP results and PVOS results would be the Education Committee. So I am suggesting that those 2 items be added to the Education Committee profile, as it really was the last draft, and I know we had many drafts, and it could get lost in the shuffle, but those, I feel that those 2 items are very important to be on the Education Committee profile.
And I appreciate that suggestion, and I have to concur that those, I think it was intended all along to have them on there. For whatever reason, in the shuffle of different versions of this, if for some reason they're not there. So if it's okay with the policy chair, I'll go ahead and add those as additions. and then we can consider them over the next month until next month when we have the second reading. The board can then make a decision on finalizing that. Are there any other comments or questions on either the profiles or the policies that are here before you as first reading?
Just for my, excuse my ignorance, as I read through these, and if I see something that I think should be an addition, or that's for discussion at the next meeting, and if there's a proposal to table it at that point at the second reading is where we would push it back, or is there a mechanism for me to ask questions if I have something related to this?
I think that if any board members have specific issues between now and the next board meeting, they should email Donna Coons, who will then communicate that information out to the policy committee. Certainly, your input is important as board members. Those are things that we should consider. We will bring forward directly as we move into the next meeting. So we can annotate a particular document that says, Mr. Winters has suggested this particular comment. We can certainly, at any time prior to a final vote on it, send a particular policy back to the committee for review. And that's certainly set up in the profiles as it may have, as it's stated in the policy profile. Are there any other questions on policies or the committee profile?
Well, I would just like to say that I also had some issues with some of the policies, the language, and some of it looked like it was not clear from one section to another. So I'll just send an email to
You
Donna.
send those to Donna, and then we'll review them and share them with the policy committee. And if it's simple wording changes that don't create a significant change in the intent of the policy, we'll bring those forward. If it needs to be reviewed, I'll make a recommendation to the chairperson of that committee to take it back to a full review. Does that make sense? Okay, thank you. That ends item number 12, policy. We can move on to item 13, other, and I guess that's me as well. So this evening, before you is the 2016-2017 instructional calendar. I'm asking you to approve the instructional calendar as presented first at the work session about a week ago, and then again this evening. Are there any questions?
So may I have a motion to approve the instructional calendar? And a second right there with Jim. So, any comments?
Yes. Over the years, I've talked about the calendar at length, and I won't be supporting the calendar tonight. The reason is because, and it's been a standing issue with me, because of the fact that the school calendar is impacted greatly on contracts within the school district with the various bargaining units. And I don't agree with that methodology, and so therefore I cannot support a calendar that is dictated by the contracts and not by the board and the administration. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion passes by a vote of 8-1.
You should let the record reflect that Mr. Roth voted in opposition.
Okay, and Mr. Roth was the one vote in opposition. Moving on.
The next item is principles for governance and leadership. As presented at the work session, I'm presenting again here this evening, we ask the board to approve the PSBA Principles of Governance Leadership. This replaces PSBA's Standards for Effective Governance and Code of Conduct, and it is being included in one of the policies that remains to be finalized as part of the policy committee's work. So we're looking for you to approve the principles of governance and leadership this evening.
May I have a motion to approve the principles of government and leadership? Second. Any comments? All right. All those in favor? Passes unanimously, 9-0.
Next are gifts and donations. Accept a gift of $500 from Paul Toms for the Audubon Elementary School backpack program. Accept a gift of $500 from Lower Providence Presbyterian Church for the backpack program at Audubon Elementary School. And lastly, accept a gift of $354.74 from Brenda Hackett for the backpack program at Eagleville Elementary School.
Good job, Brent. How did you get to 74 cents? Oh, we have two more up here, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. And then we'll do D, trips, which is approve field trips or boys track and field at William and Mary College on March 31st through April 2nd, 2016, at a cost of approximately $11,170 for registration fees and transportation. And the second trip is approve a field trip for girls lacrosse to Western High School in Charlottesville, Virginia for competition and collegiate tours. Those are new items that were not on the work session, so if there's any questions related to those items, I'll be glad to take them.
What about the mascara check?
I'm sorry?
We had to vote on the mascara check as a donation.
Well, we don't have it here on the agenda here, so we'll have it on for the next agenda, even though it was a public presentation this evening.
But it came through.
It came through the Education Foundation.
So do we need to approve it then?
It should be on the agenda.
Okay.
This was, in all fairness, is a coordination issue with trying to, get the Education Foundation and check presentation approval. So if we can add to the agenda to approve a check in the amount of $215,000 from the Education Foundation for the Methacton community for use by the Capital Campaign Field Project.
Does anybody have any issues with adding that last minute? Okay. So may I have yes?
Dr. Zerbe, when you read that trip to William and Mary College, you said $11,170 and the...
$1,100.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Good catch.
So let's vote on all the items for letter C and D as presented on the physical copy of the agenda. Then we have to allow for public comment on the check from the EFMC.
All right.
C3,
All right. We'll do everything other than. We'll pull out C3 separate since Brenda's listed on that. So can I have a motion to approve? Oh, I lost my page here. C1 and 2, gifts and donations. D, 1 and 2, the trips. Second. Any comments on those? Okay. All those in favor? Those approve, 9-0, 9-0. And then we're going to go back to gifts and donations, C3. May I have a motion to accept that gift? Second. Any comment? All those in favor? 8, abstain, 1. Now we'll go on to receiving the gift for $215,000, since we're adding that new item.
So the item on the for approval or consideration is to approve the check in the amount of $215,000 from the Education Foundation for the Methacton community for use by the Capital Campaign Methacton High School Fields Project.
Any public comment on that? Okay. So may I have a motion to accept that gift? Second. Any comment?
I wonder if we could amend the motion to say primarily as a gift from Mascaro Company. Thank you.
Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. All those in favor with the amended? Pass 9-0. All right, so we'll move on to the dates for the board members, which rolls right into the 2016 meeting schedule. May I have a motion to approve the meeting schedule? Second? Okay. Any comments from the board?
I understand that there was a lot of back and forth in coming up with this meeting schedule, and one of the iterations of this schedule that came through to us had the policy committee not meeting formally at all, and conducting a lot of the policy review via email, with the policy committee then kind of attaching itself to the work sessions. I'm glad to see that policy is at least getting its own meeting slot. However, I have concerns over whether or not an hour once a month is going to be sufficient time to get through the amount of work that policy has to do. The work of the policy committee, a good chunk of it is kind of outside of our control. It's things that are dictated by the state, things that are dictated by PSBA. An hour once a month won't allow us a whole lot of time to get through any policy that we as a district would like to implement. The upkeep of policy alone is going to take up that full hour. I'm happy to have a schedule at this point, but I have serious concerns about whether or not that's going to be enough time, and I'd like to be able to revisit this later in the year if it turns out to be a problem.
Just trying to, we've just gotten notice that there's a gas leak in the Arrowhead development, so I don't know all the details, so if you live in the Arrowhead development, if you may just want to check the news or look in this particular matter, but I want you to be aware of it.
Back to your comments. I think we're trying to set a schedule with the understanding that any parts of it can change down the road. So if you feel the hour is not sufficient and we need to revisit that, that's absolutely something we can do. And I've also mentioned that around the new work sessions as well. So we're trying out this work session. If we find, and we're going to give it a try for a while. If we find that's not the best means for bringing the work session back, and we may revisit that down the road in terms of changing things. So as soon as you see some red flags around the amount of time related to that, if you need more time or anything like that, we can absolutely revisit that. Okay.
Yeah, Chris, I'll apologize for not bringing this up earlier, but I see it again. The July, August, I think we have some policies that suggest that in the policy that we need to meet as a committee every month or on a regular basis. And I just make sure that we're clear that at least in the summer months, if we are breaking our own policy by not scheduling these meetings straight out of the box. So I just, maybe the policy itself has to be revisited, but I just want to make sure that we're not setting ourselves up to already breaking our own rules.
I'm not aware of a policy that dictates that every committee has to meet on a monthly basis. In the profiles, it says that
This one says meets monthly throughout the entire fiscal year. So maybe some of the committees have that, other committees have that too.
What the one is that's supposed to be posted on the board for the consideration is the committee generally meets monthly throughout the fiscal year. and that's how all of them are defined. And that was heavily considered an issue with the previous committees as they reviewed their committees. So in general, the intent would be to meet in those months. But and we can certainly add meetings at any time throughout the year, so long as we give proper notification to the public. So that's, we've had additional policy meetings in a month as needed. We can add these meetings in there. Again, I think this was a result of many back and forth emails, as well as a look at trying to hold true to what was originally slated as a trial period. So as we go through this trial period and get up to the summer months, I can tell you that in the past history, it does make it much difficult for people to continue meeting those additional 4 times in those summer months when they have to schedule in vacations. So not that we're not conducting the work of the board, we board meetings and we have work sessions in there that we can address many of those matters. So I just think that as we progress through the calendar year, we can certainly make changes, as Mr. Boardman has indicated.
The other point I made about that being open too is it related to the consolidation update and everything. We're going to have some critical decisions around that July-August timeframe. So, we're going to be spending a decent amount of time on that part during that timeframe while trying to fit it in with the vacations and all that. All right. Any other comments on the calendar? All right. All those in favor? Any against? Okay. Passes by a vote of 9-0. New business, Dr. Zerbe?
Yes, under new business, as discussed at the work session last week, an early retirement incentive. The early retirement incentive, I'm making one adjustment to the language here. It should read, approve the early retirement incentive package for professional staff. That's for professional staff is being added after the word package. And the remainder of the item reads as it is intended. Sure, I can read the whole thing. Not to exceed $30,000 to be paid over a period of 2 calendar years for each retiree and placed in an HRA with a minimum of 15 participants and a maximum of 25 participants. The district retains the right to adjust the minimum and maximum thresholds after reviewing the results of the program.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the early retirement incentive? Kathy? Or Brenda? Also a good friend of mine. As long as we both know who I'm talking about, right, Brenda? So we have our second. Any comments from the board? Yeah, Paul?
Just for clarification, if there was only 12 participants, then it's the option of us to decide to go through it or not. So from a perspective, a minimum of 15 participants. So if only 12 take it, we choose to accept those 12 or not accept those 12 at that point as an exception, but the starting point is 15.
We're seeking, I'm sorry, we believe to make this as effective as possible. The minimum threshold of 15 is the optimum number that we're looking for the retirement, take the retirement incentive. If we get less than that, we can choose as a board. The administration will make a recommendation to the board, let you know what the details are associated with that, and the board then can approve something different than the thresholds that are listed in the motion.
And if there was 30, what is the process for determining which 25, or if we accepted 30?
Again, if it's greater than the 25 maximum threshold, we would provide a recommendation to the board on that matter as well.
Do we choose which 25, or is there a...
No, it must be on a first-come, first-served basis. And that's spelled out in the communication to the staff.
Question on where we say for professional staff. Is that exclusively teachers? Does it include principals, nurses?
Let's clarify the language on the motion so that it reflects that. So we're going to say approve the early retirement incentive package for professional staff in the MEA bargaining unit. Not to exceed, and then it continues on.
Could I also suggest that the 30,000 be per person identified there, as opposed to just 30,000? Since we're amending.
So noted.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay.
How does this language compare to what was offered the last time that we did the early retirement a couple years ago? Is this comparable?
It's exactly the same,
Exactly
except
the
the threshold was initially established at 10.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor? Or, no? No? No public comment required for that. All those in favor? Against? None. Pass the vote 9-0. All right. All right. Now we move on to courtesy of the floor.
Excuse me, before we move to that. Actually, I think it might even be old business as opposed to new business. But at our meeting in January, there was a motion to ask the administration to come up with a budget that falls below the Act 1 index by the February 16th, 2016 Finance Committee meeting. And we did not receive exactly that when we got the presentation, and I wondered what the process was at this point going forward with the budget.
I think that it was stated, at least I'm certain that I stated that we were working towards that particular directive at the meeting on the 16th. I mentioned that with the 2 weeks that we had, we weren't able to provide that. However, we should continue working through the Finance Committee and other work session meetings to drive towards that particular directive. And several things were suggested that we work towards. Just bear with me 1 second. We were going to bring back to the board a presentation on not only debt refunding, but debt restructuring. We have that actually planned as a draft agenda that's going out to for review by the Finance Committee for the upcoming finance meeting, where we'll bring in the financial advisors to present the first look at debt restructuring. We also will continue working with the building and departmental budgets to, bring them to a level that's appropriate for the operation of the district. We certainly will be bringing forward a transportation route review that we talked about, and we will be presenting at the Finance Committee the expanded employee medical waiver incentive, as well as this evening we brought forward to you the professional staff early retirement incentive program. So those are several of the items that will help us drive towards that particular directive.
Okay, I think to some extent, the thought was that we probably as a board should hear what pain might be encountered by making sharp cuts. These are all very good things to work towards, and I know you presented them in the presentation last week. But it seems to me that if we are expecting to receive that type of information, it needs to include as much as you can that doesn't have pain, but also to give us what suggestions you might make that may result in some kind of pain. But, you know, it doesn't seem to me that when presenting things this way that you're actually honoring the spirit of the motion that was made last time, which was specifically to come in under the Act 1 index.
Okay, any more comments? Any other new business? Yeah, Mike?
I just have one quick thing that came to my attention before tonight's meeting. Springford Area School District is planning another one of their marches on Harrisburg in terms of this budget. They've tried this twice before in the past. They've had some limited involvement from other school districts, but with the budget impasse as bad as it's been, this is part of our job, I think, that sometimes gets overlooked is the advocacy thing. And it's interesting tonight that we passed the PSBA guidance. And I'm just curious if, you know, up for discussion of the board, is this something that as Methacton School Board totally, that we could, you know, get behind formally? Would we be interested in any of the members attending this march? Or is this something that we would like to see individual board directors do on their own? I just want to see if anybody has any thoughts on this.
As an educator and as a now school board director, I think it is important for us to get involved legislatively. I will comment publicly that I'm a little uncomfortable going forth with Springford. Their school directors have some outside political interests that I would prefer Methacton work on its own.
One of our duties as school board directors is to be involved with our legislators. We can certainly talk to them individually, but periodically the intermediate unit, in conjunction with the School Boards Association, also engages groups of school districts to do things of this sort. As I said, I'll be at a meeting tomorrow night. I'll let you know if they're organizing something, because it's far better, I think, to go as a group as opposed to just one school district.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I didn't clarify that. They're trying to get all 500, if they could, school districts across the state. And Mr. Winters and I, when we were at the IU months ago, I know Chena had mentioned that this would be something that they're really going to try and do. So hopefully that we can all do this together.
Okay. If I hear anything, I'll let you know. Thank you.
And Brenda, just to reiterate, since you are our IU rep, if there is other school districts involved, I would be interested. I appreciate that. I would be interested.
Any other new business? All right. Let's move on to courtesy of the floor. Ashley was up first.
Hi, Ashley Wilkerson from Audubon. I'll start off first by addressing the outdoor ed issue just briefly, because I did reach out to several of the Home and School board members for Skyview and was told that their Home and School Association does contribute $3,500 to the outdoor education program. That was the contribution this year. So Home and School is still substantially contributing to that program. The other topic I'd like to comment on is regarding the school closure consolidation issue. I believe tonight actually marks the one-year anniversary of the public hearings. And speaking personally, I think the plan that we saw earlier this evening looks like it has the potential to address a lot of the questions and concerns that the public brought to the board a year ago when we heard the initial plans. Two of the things I'd like to comment on in particular. First, when we're looking at capacity, let's really be clear this time around on whether or not that includes modular units, because I think that's one of the things that still lingers for a lot of us. And the second thing is class size. We have this definition of 25 for our elementary school students, by and large, as being the maximum class size. I don't know that a lot of us in the public know how we arrived at that number or if it's really a best practice. And as part of what we do going on, I would love to see some research and some data regarding what the ideal classroom size is. I know the information's out there because a lot of parents were looking into that about a year ago. But create a realistic idea of what it looks like and take into account things like how many special education students are going to be in those classes, how many aides are going to be in those classes helping the teachers, and what's the optimal picture for the best education for our kids. That doesn't mean that we have to go with that class size, but I would love to see that if we're looking at whether or not to close a school or what our classes are going to be in a little over a year's time, that we are actively deciding what our number is that we're going to go with, so that if we go above the ideal class size, we are consciously making that decision and know what we're getting ourselves into, rather than blindly going with, well, we're going to have no more than 25 kids, and realizing that that's a struggle. And I say this particularly as the parent of a child who has 24 kids in a classroom along with a teacher and 2 aides. That is a lot of bodies, and it's a challenging situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Travis.
Ron Evans, Worcester Township. I have a question first. The incentive for retirement, is there any other benefits goes along with that, such as I'm concerned about hospitalization and other things like that? Is there any of that in this package?
No.
Absolutely nothing.
When someone retires?
I'm talking about the 25,000 that you're, or 30,000, whatever it was, yeah, 30,000 that you're paying to get teachers out of here, professionals out of here, I should say.
So with the 30,000, it's paid over a 2-year period, 15,000 per each year. The money goes into basically a health retirement, a savings account, where the retired employee can then use that money to pay for health care needs. So that's the entire incentive.
Yeah, but I mean, they're getting more than the 30,000. They're getting some benefit out of hospitalization without using that 30,000?
Mr. Harney, I think he's referring to when someone retires, they're likely to receive additional benefits aside from this incentive. Can you reflect on that? I mean, they have an incentive. What other things are built into the contract? I think that's what he's asking.
The only incentive is that they can stay on our plan, but they have to pay for it, and they pay for it using the HRA account. So we don't subsidize their health care beyond that at all. They are responsible for paying that bill in full.
So the only other piece that they would have then would be whatever they would receive from the retirement system.
Yes, they do get some from PSERS as well, but that has nothing to do with this package or our outlay.
Well, I have 2 comments on that. First, if you're offering that only to the professionals, that's about as much discrimination as I could ever see, where you're paying the professional, which does not include everybody. Am I correct there?
It does not include all the employees that are employed by the North Acton School District. That's correct.
That's about the discrimination as much as I can see. And my last comment is, I cannot see and understand why you would take my tax dollar and other people's tax dollar to pay people to leave. If I'm my correct arithmetic, if you retired 25 people at $30,000, that's $210,000. I don't want a penny of my money going to pay somebody to sit on their rear end. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Katie Donnelly, Audubon. Just wanted to talk real quickly just about outdoor ed, or just give you guys a little bit more information that I know. My son went last year. Each team goes, and it's not over 1 week, so they don't overlap each other. So say that nurse, it wouldn't be consecutive days. She would be there 2 days, so every trip would add on more money in that way. Also, I think when they were talking about all the home and school, it used to be that when 5th grade was in the elementary schools, it was all 5 elementary schools, different home and schools, much more involvement, so money and funds were much different than I think Skyview is at this time. And I do know the letter that went home about paying and stuff, it does state on there if there's any financial reasons to contact the school principals. Yes, it could be uncomfortable, but I don't think, they do, and that's probably where the home and school does help out. I don't think kids don't go that I know of. I mean, it is an issue. But, and as far as, I think, the place to go, of course, my son loved it. I think most kids do. But if we're something we're looking at and evaluating, talk to those fifth grade teachers, see what they think those kids are getting out from it. So, but my kid liked it.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Joe Bickelman from Audubon. I understand that the district hired a transportation consultant, and I was wondering what the cost of that is, or is it being provided for free from the consultant?
I believe the cost of the consultant is approximately $2,000.
$2,000. And what's the overall objective of hiring that consultant?
The overall objective is to study the transportation routes to see if there's any ways to provide increased efficiencies in the operation.
14-15 was the first year that we contracted services with First Student. 14-15 was the first year that we didn't have a transportation director. We went through the year. Late spring that year, in 14-15, we hired a transportation director for 82.5. And then in 15-16, we seem to have all these issues and problems where it requires a transportation consultant. So we hired a transportation director for 82.5 in the late spring of 15. And just picture this. You put out classifieds for transportation director applications.
Could I ask you, hold on, we're talking about the gas.
All right.
Sorry to interrupt, but they're giving us an update on the leaks.
So you get applications in for transportation directors, and you have a stack of them from the area, from the local area, and you review them. And if your concern is routing and the bus boss or the bus boss transportation system, you try to vet the applications, and you try to get somebody that knows routing. And you can even test them on that. You can say, hey, here's what we have here. Let's see you go around, how familiar you are with the routing, and what did you use at your district. And you kind of go through those applications, and you narrow it down, and you have those interviews where you're going to get your own in-house consultant, so to speak, for 82.5. But now we're going outside the district, and we're hiring a transportation consultant for $2,000. And this is the first time that's ever been brought out in the public that we've done this. So we have a transportation consultant. The 14-15 year was the first time that we had contracted with First Student, the 14-15 school year. If you take the audit report from 13-14 and compare it to the audit report for the district for 14-15, you see that student transportation services, the net cost of that is over $200,000 increase of what we spent from 13-14 to 14-15. It's online, it's in the audit report, you can see that. We took a big hit in transportation subsidies for 14-15. So this is where we are. We got a transportation consultant, okay? I don't understand all that. You know, we have a business manager that doesn't have food service anymore, doesn't have those 60 employees, doesn't have the 120 employees from transportation. Okay? And the HR department that doesn't have 180 people to worry about to do a job and getting the right person for the job. But now we have a consultant. That's just a concern of mine. Another item. My wife's W-2 came for the 2015 school year. That's the first year, it's all First Student. I compared it to the 2013 year, her W-2. She took a 25% pay cut. 25%. If you take what she was cut which is about $10,000. Take it times 120 employees that were outsourced, that comes to $1.2 million. It just gives you a contrast of what motivates corporate America and the bottom line and what motivates government to save money. Okay? The reason she made less was the paring down of runs, minutes, all the drivers. You go through the gate, you're clocked out 2 minutes later. It's the paring down of the time, of the time, of the time. So you have government not looking at the bottom line to save $1.2 million and 120 transportation jobs to save that money. What you did was you sold an asset, $1.8 million for the buses, and you don't have to replace buses, okay? But 120 people, 25% pay cut, black and white. Black and white. 2015 first student W-2, Methacton W-2. Let's not look at the runs, let's outsource them. That's what happened. Plus you got the chunk of money of $1.8 million. That's what government does. Government has a budget, and it just flows that way. People are layered in, and government just goes on that way. As soon as that got outsourced, First Student found a way to save $1.2 million, but they're going to be charging Methacton School District on the contract. That's what happened. So she lost 25% of her pay. You got to picture this with all the other 120 drivers or whatever. She pays $5,700 for a medical plan that stinks. And she lost about $300,000 in PSERS benefits in the future. I just want to make the board aware of what went on and what didn't go on to review the routes in the past when they were Methacton drivers. It's easy to just cut the cord on them, and that's what happened.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing all that information with us. Any other comment? John?
John Andrews, Lower Providence. With regard to the presentation this evening on the consolidation plans, it sounds like the selected vendor will have 2 months to do the enrollment projection. And I believe Pell started in like August and delivered their report, their draft report in December, and then it got finalized in January. And I think most vendors would need 3 months to do a report that would do justice to the issue. So I'm a little concerned about that aspect of the schedule. Thank you.
Thanks, John. If we get that feedback from the vendors when we do the RFP, there's no reason we can't adjust things. Appreciate your comments. Any others?
Candy Alaba, Eagleville. I've sat for the last year or two and heard back and forth about the bus drivers. I've watched the school district throw the bus drivers under the bus. Now, we hire a transportation consultant to look into the routing. We have someone that goes to the transportation department that could have been hired 2 years ago to do it. But we brought in Mr. Laws for $82,000. I'm getting tired of seeing all the money that's wasted. We sold the buses for a one-time influx of cash. I've been in this area for 40 years, in the school district for 26. Up until the school buses were sold, the Methacton bus drivers had an excellent reputation. And I know this for a fact because 2 of my family members were bus drivers for a very long time. And I heard a lot of compliments about when they were drivers. The bus drivers took a hit on their salary, they took a hit on their benefits. But the administrators and teachers have not taken a hit on their salaries or benefits. We got rid of the lunch ladies to save money. I have not heard where we saved money. I keep looking for these savings, and I don't see it. But we're not supposed to be in the transportation business anymore, but why are we hiring all these people? Yeah, for what reason? Because it's good financially? I don't understand this. If you're doing it for routing, I don't see how the routes have changed much in this school district. The problem that I've seen exist over the last maybe 10 years is the traffic. And no one can do anything about the traffic in this school district. And the traffic has continuously gotten worse. I live on Eagleville Road. I see the traffic in the morning going up to the school. I see the traffic in the afternoon. And unfortunately, the traffic light there made it worse. But the thing is, no one can control the traffic in this school district. The bus drivers are penalized if they're late. What happens if there's an accident? If there's an accident on Eagleville Road, that road is shut down completely. And it's happened to the bus drivers in the school district. But you have to sit back and look what you have done to loyal employees, and you're still taxing the taxpayers on this. Why? You know what? If you want someone to work for the first student that can do everything you're hiring for, you should have hired Mary Beth Pastino when you had the chance. That's a woman who's worked here 25 years, could do it with her eyes closed, but you keep hiring more people. And I don't understand it, but something needs to be straightened out because there's a lot of unhappy parents this year. A lot of unhappy parents. Why they haven't come here to say something is beyond me. And I'm speaking as a former parent of a parent of a former student, but yet still paying for this. So there needs to be really serious decisions on why you keep hiring all these people for transportation. Something needs to be fixed, and it needs to be fixed quickly, and stop costing the taxpayers money. And look out for the employees that your loyal bus drivers who were part of this district. They're the people you should be looking at, and you should be looking out for them.
Thank you. Any other comment? Okay. Before we adjourn the meeting, related to the marching band trip, I'm hoping if they make everybody successful in raising money and getting the marching band down there, that they have a surprise guest bass drummer that goes down and stomps on the field with them. Just throwing that out there. Now we'll move on. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? A second? All those in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.